That I'm going to pick up the keys to Landsat 8. We actually have them. They are here. One of them operates the spacecraft bus. One of them, some of them operate some of the sensors, and one of them operates the mission operations element. But here they are, and we're very proud to have them. So this week has been a very interesting week. We came in here as a team, NASA, USGS, and a contractor team, and we had LDCM. And now we're very proud to be able to stand up here and say that we, USGS, with that same team, is now operating Landsat 8. And that happened because of a team, and teams within that team. Scientists, engineers, administrators, facilities folks, people that move paperwork, contracts people. They all made this happen. So what I'd like to do is just maybe give you a real quick tour right now of the room you're in. This is the Lauer Auditorium at the Earth Resources Observation Science Center in Soux Falls, South Dakota. Very proud place here in South Dakota. If you look to my right, you'll see 5 panels. Therein is the history of LDCM Landsat 8. It starts with in the upper panel, farthest to the back of the room, and that is an image taken by now Landsat 8 of Goddard Space Flight Center. So that's where all of this really got kicked off. The next image down is an image over the Front Range of Colorado and where Ball Aerospace resides. They built the Operational Land Imager, which is one of the 2 sensors on board L8. I would like to mention that Goddard also built the other sensor, the thermal infrared sensor that also flies on L8. The middle image over there is an image of Gilbert, Arizona, which is where Orbital Sciences put all this together and made sure it all worked and tested it and made sure it was going to provide what we needed to have scientifically so that we can continue the 40-year mission that we've had with Landsat and the 40 years now that we've had here at EROS. The next image reminds me of being here 15 short weeks ago. And this room was just as full as it is now. And we watched that spacecraft, LDCM, be launched. It was a near perfect day, a perfect launch into a near perfect orbit. And because of that, we believe we've got a really good system. It has been checked out over the last 108 days, and that is an image of Vandenberg Air Force Base where that launch actually happened. The last, if you didn't know, looks like a farming type community. I wonder where that could be. Senator, do you have a thought? That is an image over Sioux Falls and the EROS Center here. So there, with its own imagery, is a real quick history of where this system has been and where we plan to take it into the future. We also have behind a series of signators a brief history of the center. EROS has been here for 40 years. It was August of 1973 when the initial part of the building here of EROS was opened. So we will be celebrating that a little later on this summer. And as you go behind me and to my left, commemorating that wonderful day when NASA got us all started. and ULA and other contractor partners to make sure that we got this spacecraft where it needed to be. And then to my left is some imagery from both the operational land imager, the OLI, and the center two images are from the thermal infrared sensor. So you really have a picture here just within this room of what we're so proud to be able to speak about here today. What we are going to do is we're going to get a few comments from signatories as well as the senator, and I will turn it over here in just a moment to Dr. Matt Larson, but let me just introduce Matt a little bit. He's my boss. I think he's a wonderful guy. Matt is the Associate Director at USGS for the Climate and Land Use Change Program. So he is responsible for the science that is being done across the activities that we have here, dealing with land cover, land use, really not only here within the United States, but also has international obligations. Matt's a real busy man, and we're just pleased that he can be out here and help MC this event for us. And so I'm going to turn it over to Matt and let him make some comments, and we'll go from there. Matt, you now have the floor.
I'm not sure which key is which, but I'm really excited to have these in the hand, and we thank virtually everyone in this room had a role in making sure that these keys actually had something to use, something to turn on, something to operate. And so you've heard the phrase "takes a village." Well, really it takes a small city, because when you add up all the folks in this room, and as Frank noted, you all have a variety of purposes and functions in your work duties every day. And whether you're government or contract or one of the vendors that help support the mission or build key parts to it, or your families who help supported you during those long days, those long hours when you worked extra to get things done in order to reach this point. In addition to everyone here in this room and all the people that you represent, there are thousands of folks around the country, back in Goddard, over in Gilbert, back at USGS, down in the interior, on the Hill, amongst members of Congress, and we're delighted to have Senator Johnson here with us today. So this is a great day, and I think we all owe ourselves a round of applause. You all should be patting yourselves on the back for the great effort that this has resulted in. This is a great day for Landsat. I don't know if you felt it. I've been telling people it was like a little atrial fibrillation at 1 o'clock. Now, an hour and 15 minutes ago, when the operational data flow from the Landsat 8 began, and there's probably a little bit of sound of data streaming out as thousands and thousands of electrons started to move out of this building all over the world. And that's one of the most remarkable things of all about this, that these data are freely available to everyone. As I said, it took a lot of folks to make this possible, and I'll introduce a few, not everyone. And of course, we'll start with Senator Tim Johnson from the great state of South Dakota, and we'll ask Tim to make a few remarks in a moment. Also here from Senator Johnson's staff, I believe, are Sharon Boyson, Brett Hoffman, and David Benson, so thank you for joining. From John Thune, Senator John Thune's staff, Ben Lee is here. Thank you for coming, Ben. And from Congresswoman Kristi Noem's office, she's unable to attend, however, Andrew Curley is here with us today. So we appreciate the interest and support from our delegation to Congress from here in South Dakota. The USGS and NASA transition team seated here, I'll introduce them in a moment, but you've already met Frank Kelly. There's Colleen Hartman from Goddard, Suzette Kimball from USGS, Mike Freilich from NASA headquarters. And we'll hear from them a little bit later. After I name a few more folks I want to acknowledge who are here in the room. Carrie Lutke from Ball Aerospace, is here, as along with a number of other leaders of the ball effort. As you heard from Frank, that's where the OLI was built, the optical land imager, in the great town of Boulder, Colorado. My alma mater, see you, go Buffs. Also here is Mike Larkin from Orbital, as Frank noted, in Gilbert, Arizona, helped put things all together and on the bus for this rather big piece of equipment. It's about the size of an SUV, maybe weighs about, what, 3,000 pounds, Landsat 8. It's now up there, 438 miles, every 90 minutes passing overhead. From SGT, Harold Stringer, Christine Matthews, and Phil Sablehouse are here, and some of you know Phil's name, Sablehouse, from his leadership earlier in the effort at Goddard to build the tiers that was later picked up by Ken Schwer and in his leadership of that team over the last year or so. Dan Cox is here from ASRC Research and Technology Solutions. He's the president. Welcome, Dan. And representatives also from Hammers, Honeywell, United Launch Alliance, Cherokee Nation, and KSAT, Tromsø, in Norway. We even have someone here from Norway. We really appreciate that long trip. It's a little bit further than Washington, D.C. for many of us. From the local community, Slater Barr is the director of Soux Falls Development Foundation. Terry Ellis Schmidt is the director of the Soux Falls Convention and Visitors Bureau. Carolyn Winchell is director of Forward Soux Falls. And also locally based here is Larry Toll, the president of the Washington Pavilion. So welcome all of you, and thank you for your interest and support in this great enterprise based here in Soux Falls. From the university sector, Dr. James Smith, who's the president of Northern State University in Aberdeen, is here. Dr. Mark Benedetto, president of University of Sioux Falls and Soux Falls, South Dakota. And Dennis Helder, associate dean for research, South Dakota State, is here. So welcome to our academic partners, and there are many around the world and around the country that they represent here locally. Also, AmericaView is here, which is our partnership we have with universities around the country to better disseminate and use Landsat data. It's been in place for a number of years. So Rebecca Dodge is here from their board of directors. Welcome, Rebecca. From USGS headquarters, on my staff, my deputy Sarah Riker is here. Tim Newman is here somewhere. He is the, there he is, program coordinator for the Land Remote Sensing Program, which is the USGS component that helps support the Landsat and other remote sensing activities at the USGS. Dave Osmond here from our Congressional Liaison Office. And John Campbell from our Media Affairs team. We'll have two brief sets of remarks, one from Administrator Charles Bolden from NASA, and another set of brief remarks from our Secretary of Interior, Sally Jewell. So please cue up that pair of videos.
I'm NASA Administrator Charlie Bolden. It's my pleasure today to be a part of the official transition of the latest Landsat satellite from NASA to the Department of Interior's U.S. Geological Survey, so they can carry on the important work of the Landsat program. As we did with previous Landsat satellites, NASA built the Landsat Data Continuity Mission to perform essential Earth observation tasks for at least the next 5 years, taking its place as one of the crucial assets in space for our nation to protect our planet and better understand its complex processes. Landsat 8, as it will now be known, carries on a long tradition of Landsat satellites that for more than 40 years now have helped us learn how Earth works, understand how humans are affecting it, and make wiser decisions as stewards of this planet. As we move forward, NASA will work closely with the USGS on the next phase of research and data collection that the Landsat satellites have been performing. The President's FY 2014 budget provides the critical resources for us to determine the best path forward for this vital work. It funds a study to define a sustainable space-based system to continue these observations. We're going to work closely with USGS to develop the next phase of a global land imaging system that will extend and continue the existing Landsat data record. Observing our home planet is one of NASA's chief priorities, and our fleet of satellites is constantly monitoring the entire Earth in many ways. We're delighted to partner with USGS on Landsat, one of the most enduring and productive members of this group. So here, Secretary Jewell, this wonderful and innovative spacecraft is now in your hands. I look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you, and here's to many more years of value from Landsat data.
Thank you, Charlie, and everyone at NASA. I just want you to know that the U.S. Geological Survey and the Department of Interior are going to take really good care of this little baby. She means a lot to us, just as she means a lot to you. You know, her older sister, Landsat 5, was named by the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest operating Earth observation satellite. So we've done great work together. And the partnership between NASA and the USGS in Earth observation is so critically important, not just to each of us, but to all the people on this planet. You know, we do what each of us does best. NASA designs and builds great spacecraft and satellites. The USGS does a great job of synthesizing large amounts of data and turning it into useful information that is hugely impactful to the American people and how we take care of this planet that we all care so much about. You know, there's certain rites of passage. When a new child is born, you think about a name, and today I'm pleased to share that the new name of this little baby will be Landsat 8. It'll be easy to remember. We hope and pray that she will outlast her older sister and again be in the Guinness Book of World Records, setting a new record. So it is the kind of work that this satellite will do that is taking the technologies that have been developed over many years that is going to deliver us really terrific information to help us all take care of this planet in a more effective way. So I encourage all of the public to go to landsat.usgs.gov to obtain this information for free. And again, I want to thank Administrator Bolden, your colleagues at NASA, my colleagues at USGS and Interior, and all of the aerospace engineers and other scientists and engineers who've been involved in this work. Thank you so much on behalf of the American people.
Thank you, Sally Jewell. Many of you know that both the NASA Administrator Bolden and our then Secretary of Interior Ken Salazar came to the launch at Vandenberg in February and had a delightful time, and were in one of the control centers observing the launch just prior and during and just after. So it was a great chance to see two senior members of the White House team actively engaged in this such a remarkable and long-lasting and valuable scientific enterprise. So now we will turn to the signing over of the document. And I was joking with folks earlier, if I was Chevy Chase, I'd stumble on the way over the table and put my foot to this, but I'm not. Leads the Earth Science Division at NASA headquarters back in Washington, D.C., and has had a huge role in the Landsat program in the past years, and we appreciate his continual engagement and leadership as we go forward in the development of the follow-on mission to Landsat 8. So thank you, Mike, and look forward to your remarks.
Thank you very much, Matt. And thanks to USGS and to EROS and to all of you, friends and colleagues on the LDCM and Landsat 8 teams for the personal invitation to come and join with you in this extremely happy and indeed earth-shattering event. Landsat 8, making measurements of Earth's global land masses and coastal regions from space, is an important mission for science. But it's also an important mission for our nation, and it's important for all of humanity. To understand the Earth as an integrated system, we have to make measurements of the land where we live, especially land use and the terrestrial biosphere. As we've seen in the last 2 days, for those who have joined the reviews, Landsat 8 is already making such measurements better than they've ever been made before. And in a tremendous example of how NASA and USGS and DOI are really linked and think the same, let me read the words that I wrote down before I heard Secretary Jewell's address. Landsat 8, along with older sibling Landsat 7 is continuing the 41-year continuous record of such observations from space, well sampled and consistently processed. Researchers on the science team are prepared to use the data to understand human-induced and natural trends on our planet. When Landsat 8 measurements are coupled with those from the other 16 research satellites that NASA has on orbit, they will help us to understand and predict this complex world in which we live. But global land imaging supports much more than research. The resolution, the coverage, the accuracy, thanks to USGS, the predictability and the free and open availability of the data stream allow many non-research entities, states and local governments, water districts, especially in the West, the private sector, and international public and private organizations to use the data to provide unique information to people, ordinary old people and young people around the world. Truly, our national investment in Landsat 8 is leading to improved lives for everyone on Earth. Looking to the future, the President has asked NASA and USGS to define an architecture for sustained global land imaging for the next 20 or 25 years. While many such attempts at engineering a sustained system have been made before, only partially successful, I'm confident that we're going to succeed this time. Our agencies are working better and more closely than ever before. The world has also changed, and there are new competent partners and some creative ideas that deserve close examination and evaluation. The administration is committed to a sustained and sustainable program, and thanks in very large part to the exemplary performance of LDCM, now Landsat 8, and to your work to date, Congress, and indeed, I think the nation, recognize the value of sustained global land imaging. NASA is proud and pleased to have contributed and to continue to contribute to the Landsat 8 endeavor. We've seen that this complex mission is the product of a large and skilled team and many years of your efforts. Throughout, NASA and USGS have worked seamlessly together, along with our partners, as you've heard, in the private sector and academia. In the end, though, it's your work, the work of you, the dedicated, diligent, and expert people, that has brought us to this milestone of commissioning and operations transition. Thank you, and congratulations to all of you.
We're going to hear a little bit more about some of the science applications and use of these data from the co-chairs of the Landsat Science Team. So, as some of you may know, the Landsat Science Team is co-led by NASA and the USGS. So we'll hear from Dr. Tom Loveland and Dr. Jim Irons from EROS and Goddard, respectively.
My name is Jim Irons. I am the NASA project scientist for the Landsat Data Continuity Mission, beginning with the launch of Landsat 7 in April of 1999. I guess I'm going to have to change my business card tomorrow to Landsat 8. I want to emphasize that I cannot adequately express what a privilege it is to work on the Landsat program. For over 40 years, the Landsat program, and I usually don't read remarks, but I don't think I can get through this one without choking up unless I read, so bear with me. For over 40 years, the Landsat program has provided an unbroken view of the global land surface from the high vantage point of space. Since the launch of Landsat 1 in 1972, there has always been at least one Landsat satellite in operation, and the resultant archive of over 3.7 million Earth images held here, right here at USGS EROS, provides an unparalleled record of a dynamic world, changing at rates unprecedented in human history due to an increasing population, advancing technology, and growing economies. Now, today, begins the service of the 8th Landsat satellite, developed under the name Landsat Data Continuity Mission. and today renamed Landsat 8 as the lead for satellite operations, transitioned from NASA to the U.S. Geological Survey. We did not call the effort the continuity mission for no reason. Rather, we built a satellite system to provide data that are backward compatible and comparable with all the data in the archive so that scientists and resource managers can analyze time series of images over a multi-decadal time span. The technical success of the Landsat program has been remarkable, and all the satellites have provided great data. With all due respect to those older siblings, I will claim today, with some admitted bias, that Landsat 8 will prove to be the best Landsat satellite ever launched. I make this claim in part because we have incorporated technical advancements in the two instruments, the Operational Land Imager, or OLI, built by Ball Aerospace, and the Thermal Infrared Sensor TIRS, built at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. And those technical advancements will allow us to better characterize the cover across the landscape and to be more sensitive to change over time. I compared the data from the Landsat satellites to a yardstick. Data from the earlier satellites are great. They're like having a very accurate yardstick marked every quarter inch. Data from the Landsat 8 will be like having an equally accurate yardstick marked every 64th of an inch. Landsat data will collect more data with greater precision than the previous workhorse Landsat observatories of the past. Landsat, as expressed earlier, I'm going to ad-lib here. It's great to hear from the administrators and the policymakers and the managers of our sister agencies, NASA and the U.S. Geological Survey and the Department of the Interior. And I guess maybe because it's obvious, or maybe because people like Tom Loveland have done a great job, but they get it. They just understand how critically important these observations are to the nation, to the world, and in our everyday lives. And I really appreciate how articulate and eloquent they are collectively in expressing the importance of this program. So thank you for that. We're very grateful. Landsat today becomes a national treasure of critical importance to the nation and the entire world. Millions of people will access the data directly from USGS EROS, and billions, indeed the entire global society, will reap the rewards of more informed resource management decisions, wiser land use policies, and better preparations for inevitable change that will be the payoff of the remarkable observations from the satellite. I think today that I have the best job at NASA, and I would like to introduce my close colleague, good friend and counterpart from the U.S. Geological Survey, Dr. Tom Loveland, who I will dare say propose that he perhaps has the best job today in the U.S. Geological Survey, perhaps in the entire Department of the Interior, but I'll let him speak to that. Tom will come up to speak further on the great return on investment we expect from Landsat 8. Thank you.
It does feel like the best job right now. I can figure this out. Or this one. Or just talk loud. Today's an incredible day. What an event. It's the culmination of about a 108-day sprint to this point. One that's certainly highly successful. Sorry, I got the wrong size ears. Got these. And at my age, I need a little bit of handling. Obviously, technology isn't my thing, so someone else better walk off with the keys. Today really is an incredible day. It's an important day because it's a day of transition. It's a day of transition from the engineering and development phase to one of science and operations. It's our turn at EROS to step away from the ground system development, which was done extraordinarily well, and one into our long-standing role as the stewards of the Landsat program, the steward of the archive, and the organization responsible now for making Landsat 8's exceptional data available to people throughout the world. It's also our responsibility as scientists and data users to begin the job of evaluating and reporting on the usefulness of the new capabilities we have with Landsat 8. And certainly the early evidence is suggesting that those capabilities are exceptional. They're going to advance the science of land change around the world, and they're going to have an extraordinary contribution to the many operational applications of Landsat that have been going on. And with some of the new capabilities, we fully expect new applications to develop. Now, let's sit back a little bit and think about Landsat 8 in a remote sensing 101 context. In remote sensing, we look at a variety of domains of imagery, of sensing, and use those domains to understand what the phenomena we're looking at. Let's start with the spectral and spatial domains. When it comes to Landsat 8, we have compatibility and comparability with all of the images, the nearly 4 million images already in our archive. So what we're doing is adding to that long-term record for another 5 to 10 to, let's say, 30 years, and we will see millions more images that will be useful for understanding our changing planet. We also have some additional spectral measurements that enhance our capabilities and will lead to new applications. If we think about the radiometric perspective, the radiometric domain of Landsat 8, the quality of data from OLI and TIRS are just plain amazing. Walk around and look at the pictures, or better yet, start downloading some imagery. We've got some fantastic data, and I agree, the best ever we've had from Landsat. Now, from the geographic domain, the expanded acquisition capabilities that we have with Landsat 8 provides us with the opportunity to see more of the planet every day, each day, than we've ever been able to do before. And this will significantly advance our understanding to understand land change around the globe as it's occurring. Finally, let's think about the temporal domain, and that's kind of an important deal. One of the things we hear from data users more than anything else is we need continuity of data. We need it to be available today, tomorrow, and next year, and 50 years from now. But we also need more of it more frequently. With Landsat 8, operating in tandem with Landsat 7, we've returned to 8-day imaging of the planet Earth. That's significant. Through the life of Landsat 7, in late 2016, we will have 8-day coverage, which is something we've enjoyed for about 75% of that nearly 41-year-long Landsat history. So keeping that frequency of observation as high a rate as possible is really pretty critical. So let's face it, with Landsat 8, we're going to face, we're entering a new period of discovery. We have a clearer picture of the condition of the Earth's land and water, and we'll have a better understanding of the rates, causes, and consequences of global land change. Let me wrap up by offering a message from the members of the Landsat science team, those 21 scientists and engineers representing the academic world, federal science, and the international community that have asked that we extend our thanks to all of you, regardless of the color of your paycheck. All of you on the LDCM team have done a fantastic job, a job that is going to benefit NASA, to benefit the USGS, and obviously us, we at EROS. It's good for the stature of our nation's science stature, and it's especially good for the worldwide community of Landsat data users. And just a quick note on the worldwide community of data users. This got a bit of a note here that says, since 1 o'clock, when Landsat data were made available to the public, we are seeing Earth Explorer user traffic. That's one of our primary query tools for getting at the new imagery. It's running at about 110% higher capacity than normal. So they're coming. That's a wonderful thing. I just want to close with one suggestion. A group hug seems appropriate at this time, but probably not in a federal facility. But instead, what I'd like to suggest is an idea. Let's do this again and as soon as possible.
Indeed, let's try and do this again real soon. This brings us to the end of our remarks for the day. I want to paraphrase something that NASA Administrator Bolden said at launch, and that is, when you get home or wherever you're going after this, raise a glass. My usual toast is to the glory of science. That's how I convince myself. And when I'm working a late night, or when I used to be able to do field work when I was coming home in the wet, in the mud, in the cold, in different places I worked around the country. But today we can toast not only to the glory of science, but to the glory of Landsat and this remarkable achievement. So we can all pat ourselves on the back and celebrate.